Now, the Malaysian government has extended its restrictions to a nationwide movement. Now, COVID-19 cases are expected to continue to increase in the country. The government decided on a 2-week extension of border closures and shutdowns of non-essential businesses. Now, for a sense of what life is like in Malaysia right now, we speak to a citizen in that country, Evelyn Teh. She joins us via Skype. Evelyn, good morning to you. So you've been in lockdown, so to speak, for about 2 weeks now. How has life been in Malaysia?
Well, it's been good. So far, I can say from my very personal experience, I don't speak on behalf of many people out there who will have varying experience with the lockdown, especially those who are not able to work from home. So I had the privilege to work from home, and things are still moving on, but businesses, small-scale businesses, informal businesses have suffered quite immensely. We wouldn't call the lockdown here, it's more like a partial lockdown. We call the movement control order. So we are allowed to go out only to buy essentials, but infrequently as much as possible.
Yeah, but fellow citizens, it would seem, Evelyn, they've not adhered to the strict rules. As you say, it's a partial lockdown. What are people doing that have caused the government to extend the lockdown period?
Well, I'm not sure if I could tie what the government's extension of the lockdown to what how people are not adhering to the partial lockdown guideline. Actually, I think what is happening right now is the need for clear messaging when partial lockdown is announced. A lot of people are still in the dark about what they can do or what they cannot do. And in places where you see still a lot of people going out are places like wet markets, and they are frequented by local communities, and the majority of them are older citizens. So they do not know how to cope with this new ruling, and there is definitely a need for crowd control at certain localized areas. There needs to be an intervention somehow. It's not sufficient to just announce there's a partial lockdown because people don't know how to deal with it. Say, for example, a wet market that serves maybe 1,000 people every morning. And even if they decide to go every 3 days, they will still meet with a few hundred people at the same time. And really, you don't know what to do. So the authorities and the local authorities really have to come down and manage the crowd.
Yeah, how many people are infected with COVID-19 in Malaysia, Evelyn? And are authorities worried about the infection rate?
Yes, definitely we want to keep the number low. So far, according to official statistics, we have had about 1,796 cases so far. Yes, but this is accumulated, and unfortunately we have about 19, I think the number is yesterday's number, we have one more death today, but we also have quite a few hundred of people who have been discharged after recovery. So we have managed to keep the numbers down, but we are also afraid that there might be a second wave, which is why it's so important for us to follow the rules and instructions of the movement control order. Yeah.
Earlier you spoke about the older population struggling to adhere to the rules. What about the younger people? Is the general population at least adhering to what government has said are the do's and don'ts?
Yes, I think majority of the people understood the seriousness of this issue, and that everybody has to play their part in staying at home and not trying to circumvent the rule by saying that, for example, there are some people who still go out to the parks to jog, even though the government has said no such activity is allowed. And then you have people justifying, I'm just alone here, I'm not going to spread to anybody. I think it's not so much of how you can find ways to outsmart the rule, it's more like being in solidarity with the rest of the people who are staying at home as well. And also knowing that the healthcare officers, the nurses, the doctors, and everybody else in the front line are working day and night to fight off the spread of this virus. I think the least that we can do is just to stay at home and brave it out. But I think one of the governments are also trying to make it a little bit easier for those who have been impacted negatively from the economic ramifications of the lockdown. It's definitely, bringing out a lot of inequalities that has been existing in our communities. So, offering fiscal contributions to help people who have been laid off from their jobs, including small businesses as well.
Very briefly for me, Evelyn, so what's been the reaction to the extension, particularly for that older generation who are struggling to keep to the rules?
Unfortunately, I'm not too sure about how they felt, but from secondhand information that I get that is circulating around Twitter by people who are volunteering on the ground, it doesn't look too good. But at the same time, the federal government has already released some financial aid for different states to take on and help people in need. And some states like Penang has also put aside a bunch of money to help people who really needs to put food on the table. So there is mixed reactions. People who are in a bad state, of course, do not take this very well. But then people who are a bit more fortunate have mixed reactions to it, which means they also agree that this has to be extended because it's necessary to suppress the spread of the virus. But then again, we are also thinking about people who are suffering unequally. So there's a lot of NGOs that's going on the ground, and we've been putting people have been donating a lot of money and food to help these people.
Yeah, Evelyn Teh, thank you so much for painting the picture of what life is like in Malaysia right now. They are on week 2 of the shutdown, or partial shutdown, she said, but that has now also been extended, as we understand it, by another 2 weeks because authorities are worried. What's the lesson for us here? Let's adhere to the rules. Otherwise, we might also face an extension of this 21-day lockdown.